Whoa, there, go, there.
Hey y'all, Dave Mopper here. Welcome in. This pod is a compilation of lessons in fatherhood and leadership. I'm using it to explore the path to raising legends, and I'm sharing it all with you. Each episode provides a really raw and unique perspective on fatherhood, and it's what I've come to love about these conversations. There is something for every father who's in growth mode. All right, enjoy the combo. Mr. Tyson Adams, welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
My SoCal homeboy, you are, gosh, it's fun to think about our connection as you were just reminding me, we meet virtually during COVID in the thick of some of the weirdest times in our existence, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And the good man Mark Way brought us together.
He did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Mark's one of my best friends, and you had him on the podcast, right? Like that was like the first episode, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
He was a no-brainer, and before I was a dad, he was inspiration of what fatherhood was looking like. He was leaning into the work of men's work, fatherhood work, on behalf of his own reconciliation, I'm sure, and his own stewardship of his kiddos. So, you are a men's coach. You're in that space, but you have a unique forte, which is in fact why we're talking today. Give the listeners the explanation or the distinct space that you are stepping up and serving men in.
Yeah, so I'm a men's coach. I'm also trained as a therapist, and I specialize in sexuality and sexual shadow. But specifically for this conversation today, if you stay with us through this whole process, at the end, you'll be able to protect your children, both boys and girls, better than you are at this particular moment in time. And the reason why I say that is because our children, well, all of us, we as men and also our children, are under attack through the internet, through social media, through cartoons, through media. And we need to have a wider conversation about this. I think that whatever your relationship is to sexuality and pornography, we all agree that setting aside adult matters, our children should be protected when they go online, right? So that's really what we're here to do, and we're going to unpack this today.
And, Tyson, it's fun I can't wait to hear how you've clarified to a degree or just sharpened the approach, because there's the early days of our connection where I was guiding you through some communication development, some messaging development.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw your passion for this work, and you're taking it seriously. There's a lot of men's coaches out there, but I don't know if it's often overlooked, right?
Yeah.
And yet, I bet, I would imagine 100%, but let's be a little humble or realistic and say 9 out of 10 of my masculine male friends over the course of my life probably had an interaction with porn. And even if it's not a big deal, the sexualization of society, we're all seeing that happening. And it seems like there's a lot of pitfalls and dangers, and if you think about raising kids who have agency, hopefully we're going to get into how to overcome it and what we really want to equip our kids with to navigate this. But I don't want my kiddos getting caught up in that. I don't want their life co-opted, and I don't even, and then there's the really nasty version of implications that are out there, like child sex trafficking, and of course, I don't know, just getting kind of caught up in sex, even though sex isn't a bad thing, as you've explored with me.
It's beautiful.
Space, right? It's a beautiful. It's a ritual potentially. It's something to hold with great reverence. but for some reason society is luring all of us, by the way, to a place that's hypersexualized. And of course, we don't want that with our kids, especially. So I
Yeah.
suppose, I don't know, why do you think we're here, by the way? How did society get to this spot?
Mhm.
What are the mechanisms or the reasons or the components of our culture that have led us to a place where there's so much sexualization, and in particular this like
Yep.
crazy thing happening with pornography?
Yeah. So let me just set the stage and let's take a look at it on a big picture level, and then we'll go into the actual individual. So we'll look at collectively and then individually. So collectively, what do we see? We see coming out of thousands of years of religious shame and sin and, don't touch it if you masturbate, or if you have sex out of marriage, you're going to hell, and these types of messaging. And then we had sort of, in the 50s, we had Hugh Hefner, who created Playboy, and so all of a sudden, what was effectively this taboo thing became something that wasn't so taboo anymore, became legalized. And
Glamorized.
exactly. And not only that, but women's empowerment. Really, was it? Well, if you watch the A&E documentary, you can see that there was a very sinister thing happening at the Playboy Mansion and what was actually going on. But in the beginning, like I was 9 when I saw my first, pornography, and it was in a field walking, pulled back a board. There's a stack of Playboys, treasure trove. I opened it up. There's a Vanna White Playboy. My mom loved Wheel of Fortune, right? So that's where we began. And, where are we today? And like, we're in a very different, vast landscape, right? So by the time I was 12, there was a program called Kazaa or Kaza. It's kind of like LimeWire. And I call it the lottery of porn, where anybody with a camcorder, and an internet connection could upload their information into this file sharing program. And that was a very dark place because, you don't even know, there was no thumbnails. You didn't even know what it was. So you just type in something and then you download it and then you click play and boom, you're watching it. And so here I am, 11, prepubescent boy, watching high speed, very, in many ways, violent types of pornography, even pornography that was out of my awareness, right? Like pornography with animals and pornography with different genders and all these things that were completely inappropriate. And as I reflect upon it as a therapist mind or a trauma informed mind, those things were traumatizing for me. They set me up to have so much anxiety in my own body, and they stole my innocence. They corrupted the way that I approached relationship and the way that I was in my intimate experiences. And then from there, moving into college at the University of Washington, going into fraternity, where there's a server with thousands of porn videos indexed by porn star and genre and position and so on and so forth. And kind of a running joke in our fraternity, like, hey, get off the fucking internet because, like we can't do our homework because there's too many men on, right? And that was like literally the world that we lived in. So you have sort of this misogynistic, drunk out or blacked out culture, hookup culture happening. And then as I exit college, smartphones hit, Facebook hits, and now we've gone into hyper individualism and this process of anybody can be a porn star, not just the people that are being paid to do that. And then from there, as things have progressed into higher degrees of now, like looking big picture into these massive conglomerates where these corporations have, millions and billions of porn videos indexed, and usually only a few companies control all of it. Then we got into the waters of, okay, now there's an actual attack on individuals. And what I mean specifically by that is, just like social media, they kind of copied Facebook, right? When things are free, you are the product, right? And you are the product because your finger clicks the ad or your little finger clicks the ad, and that's when they get paid. And so when you think about it from that perspective, they don't care about your age or your grades or your purpose or your body or your nervous system or your relational status or your religion or anything. They only see you as a IP address, and they're just going to feed you more of that thing so that they can get you hooked, and then they're going to keep you there. And so we are collectively all victims of this industry that uses us as a means to an end, and that end is profit. And now, as we're moving out of sort of the big corporations, now it's moved into sort of the OnlyFans life, which is, oh, we're going to give the power back to the women to create their own channels, right? So similar to Instagram or whatever, you end up controlling what you put out and therefore how much you get paid, which then intersects with AI, where you can now, Silicon Valley is sort of taking it back over, where you don't even need any porn stars anymore. You just scrape the internet, create ones and zeros, and now anything you type in, it renders, and within 12 seconds, you can see that person that's 12 years old who has this gender, this color skin, this facial expression, or whatever. I mean, it's terrifying to consider what can be created through the AI, and it's obviously moving into video soon. And then you have, even beyond that, you have camming and VR goggles, which are infiltrating our children because of the video games that we, watch, or excuse me, that we consume as Americans and globally. And so that's kind of like how fast it's moved from a Playboy magazine, which was very innocent and where it's very low dopaminergic, where you had to think your way, like there was a lot of brain effort to actually come to climax, to now it's literally no effort, high dopaminergic, and where we've been commercialized fully, where men are coming to me having been taken for $20,000 because they can't stop spending money on cam girls, or where they literally have bankrupted themselves, right? So we can see that it's, from Playboy to where we're at today in a matter of, I guess you could say 30 years, is absolutely terrifying. And so that's kind of the big picture, setting the stage. And now I'll pass it to you just to kind of, what are your reflections on that? Because that's quite a wild ride we've been on.
It's absolutely, it's almost flabbergasting, and it's bizarre, it's confusing, it's intriguing in a way, and I got caught up in it to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I have never spent a single dollar in my life on a cam girl, and that sounds crazy that someone was so addicted to it, but yet I totally, I get it. So give us as listeners, and give me a little bit more context on some of the ways. I'm always listening for, because this seems like a problem. What are the implications? And you said one, bankruptcy. I ran out of money because I was addicted to, by the way, what are we really addicted to? I guess, is it the dopamine hit of actually climaxing? Are we addicted to sex as a society? Or if we get caught up in it, are we addicted to the look of a fellow human being? I don't know, like, you love women, you love men, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are we really getting addicted to, by the way?
In order to understand this and to unpack the question, we have to look at it from a nervous system level. So the way I like to teach this is to help people to understand what's actually happening in the actual body itself. So we have the prefrontal cortex in the brain stem, the ability to reason, morality, ethics, to be able to reflect on our behavior. That part of the brain may be 10,000 years old. And we also have the paleomammalian part of the brain. This is the old part of the brain, the center of the brain, the hypothalamus, right, that connects into the limbic system, which connects into our endocrine system. Well, that part of the brain is 100 million years old, right? And when you look at 100 million-year-old brain, like, what is that part of the brain good for? Like, what did it start with, right? And when you look at it, it's very simple. It's eat, it's breathe, eat, don't die, and spread your seed, right? Right. So that's what that particular part of the brain does. The other part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's where, we make logical, rational decision making. So when I look at this from a spiritual perspective, what I see is this part of the brain is amoral. It's effectively just here to procreate. And then we have the prefrontal cortex, is where I believe the moral human spirit and soul lives. And so to me, these are kind of at war with each other. And if we don't have an awareness of that, we don't come to peace with that, then we can stay our whole lives living from that more animal level. And when you look at that part of the brain, you look at chimpanzees, we share 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees. And when you study them in the wild, what do? Well, non-consent, violence, rape is a pretty common theme with monkeys, and even bonobos, who are a little bit more loving and kind, we're a little bit more like bonobos, but still there's violence there. And so what I think we really are addicted to is not necessarily addiction, but our brain is tricking us is we know that when we ejaculate into a napkin that we're not making a baby, but on some other biological level, we actually think we are procreating. We actually think that we've made a baby and that we've done our procreative urge. And so I think that that's what porn does, is it opens up infinite novelty to infinite partners in infinite directions, and it's never going to tell you no. And so it tricks us, right?
And there's low perceived consequence.
Yep.
Until it's I guess until you're caught in the swirl of it, and you're hitting bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, you're like, well,
or you're cheating or whatever it is that you end up doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you get, and there's the serious version, and then there's kind of like what appears to be the harmless version of, I'll just watch a little porn, but I can use my imagination. And now with AI, it's like, that seems partially harmless or potentially harmless compared to real cheating, losing all your money. But it just gives people, as you're saying, what did you call it? Like, this primal urge is what the word urge struck me. It's like, that's really what this is. We have these urges as humans, and yet we also have consciousness and free will and all these things, and self-determination, you might say. Is like, so we got to take agency. But also, if we don't, by the way, there's a system we're in. Capitalism is I'm a huge fan of it, but it turns out that plus this primal urge
and immorality or unethical behavior,
unethical, because you're saying on whose behalf, or who's the unethical party?
Well, just these porn companies, they're allowing violence and young women to be uploaded into the internet and things that are distorted, and then they feed it back to us.
That is an ingredient that it's not, without it, I wonder if it'd be as potent, to your point. But there just happens to be this perfect storm of the scenario that, if you're not you're going to get caught in the storm if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so important with your work and your focus, and why I've just been loving watching your path, and you're sorting through it, and the programming you're creating, and the way you've talked about it. You just sent me that tool. I don't know if that was yours or just a contemporaries, but the map. You're simplifying our understanding of what's really going on with respect to, call it just porn, let's just say the porn space, and how it's impacting society and then individuals. And man, you've got your work cut out for you, don't you?
Yeah, well, I'll say it like this. I wish I didn't have to do this work. I wish this wasn't my waking up every day and getting on calls with guys and having them bare their souls to me and share their darkest secrets. It's not an easy thing to do, to make a living. And at the same time, it's my life path. Like, I was addicted for 20 years. It caused me to have all kinds of infidelity. It also caused me to, have one night stands and hookups and things that were out of integrity and put myself in danger. And ultimately, once you've come out of that, for me, it's been 10 years. It would be insane for me to not turn around and to help those that are still stuck in the matrix of porn, right? It's absolutely commercializing our life force, and it's impacting us in many ways. And I'll give you a perfect example. Most men don't know this, and we're not taught this in health class, but when we ejaculate, it's proteins, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and sugars. And that's what leaves our body. Our nervous system has to work on overdrive to recreate our swimmers. That's just the nature of how we do it. The typical man, I'm 40, once every 2 weeks would be a good rhythm. For me, I do once a month is when I release. But when I was young, and even into my 30s, once a day, maybe twice a day sometimes. And I had no idea that I was living my entire life at a quarter tank. I had no idea. I was so drained, so depleted hormonally and with vitamins and minerals. I was so low. And when I finally did a semen retention for 30 days, all of a sudden my tank filled up and I was booming with energy. And I was like, what? I had no clue that that was happening. So as I started to do the research and the science, I started to understand that, you know, that particular part of the brain, the hypothalamus that reproduces our seminal fluid, it's also the executor, I guess, the remote control for everything else. Our sleep, our mood, our hunger, our thirst, our body temperature, our testosterone production. And so if our body's constantly working on overdrive to reproduce our seminal fluid and our T levels, then we can't actually regulate. And so what I've noticed, I first noticed this in myself. I used to just eat bread like crazy. I was a croissant guy, you know, just constantly just eating the sugar. But as I started asking men, I was like, what else, guys? And then I started to realize, oh, for me, it was also coffee. It was also alcohol. It was also sugar. It was also all of these other things. And so what I'm starting to see is that when you kick porn, you actually kick all of those other things that you're doing as a result, because when you're low of energy, you need to pull yourself back up to go out and, you know, feed the children and, you know, go to work and whatever it might be. And so the Adderall, the sugar, the video games, the Netflix, the nicotine, the cannabis, all these other things that we do to regulate ourselves when we become dysregulated from too much masturbation causes a whole downstream impact on our entire lives. And so men, we have a major blind spot to the nervous system impact of how that impacts every area of our life, from our business, our careers, you know, our ability to make money, our ability to maintain friendships, our ability to like not blow up at our kids, whatever it might be. So why this is important is outgrowing porn is not a moral conversation anymore. Throw out morality for a moment. It's literally the most effective and efficient biohack so that you can be calm, so that you can match your state to task and get shit done and have better focus, drive, and flow for your career and for your family. So that's important for me to just name that.
So, and you're not, as a practice or as a discipline, there's times in which you said semen retention. That might be the first time someone's hearing that, but obviously that means no ejaculation for a period of time. And is that an arbitrary period of time, by the way? Is 30 days the magic number? What's your sense of the discipline?
Yeah, great question. So let me define semen retention, because I'm about to do a full workshop on this. So semen retention is not about never masturbating again. A lot of people think of that because there's this organization called NoFap, and the whole idea is that you don't ever masturbate, which is
what's that stand for? NoFap? Is that a
so no? And then FAP is the sound of masturbating. So in the name, don't masturbate, which is it's not the right path, right? So throw that out for a moment, and then just understand that semen retention is just about elongating the space between each of your ejaculations. So whatever that means, if you're doing it every day, then start with every other day. If you're doing it, you know, every 3 days, then let's go for a week. If you're doing it every week, let's try for 2 weeks. And the point is that we elongate the space between so that our nervous system can rebuild and our bodies can replenish. And then it's also about when we choose to release, that we do it mindfully, you know, so we actually have an intention with it. Most men masturbate to feel better, right? And there's nothing wrong or bad about that. But it's like we're overwhelmed or we're angry or we're sad or we're sick, and we just soothe and we rub one out. But what do we do when we shift that? It's like, okay, what happens when we masturbate to better feel? Okay, so now instead of feeling better, we're doing it to better feel. So then if that moment is in our calendar, it's a point, it's in a date that we go there. And then when we actually do that masturbation, we really allow ourselves to have it. And it becomes a portal to, you know, an actual connection with self, whereby which we can grow and meditate from that space and actually have just a better connection to our body. And then that also shows up in how we are as a lover, because when we take intention and love and care and unshame our masturbation, then we end up showing up that way in the bedroom, and that also improves our sex life. So
let's not let's not go too fast, because that was good. And you said something that was so simple. It simplified it for me. It's
Yeah.
not about feeling better.
Yeah.
It's about better feeling.
Feeling. Yeah.
And that's, in a sense, you're just being more aware and conscious and of, you called it life force, which was the name, I believe, of the men's
Mm-hmm.
group that we
Yeah.
were.
Still's going. That's
Yeah, it's
still the
like,
name of it.
for good reason. I mean, ultimately, I don't know, this conversation, I'm just thinking about, I'm trying to empathize with other listeners who maybe this is the first time they've really thought about it this way.
Mm-hmm.
But how, if you called it our seminal fluid,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
our seminal fluid can turn into a little baby and a little boy, and now I've got this little 20-month-old son, or 20-month-old son, who's mountain biking with me, holding onto the handlebars as I'm riding
Yeah.
my gravel bike around our hilltops. And I'm like, so our seminal fluid has the power to generate life, and
Mm-hmm.
to a force of nature. And yet, we think just, I suppose, ejaculating kind of randomly whenever we're inclined is harmless, because it's just seminal fluid. But no, it has this significant potential,
Mm-hmm.
and we're taking it for granted. And if you are seeking as an individual to almost step up and captain your own ship and truly take the helm of your life, that involves you taking full agency of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple of other areas, I would say, even like how you communicate and all that. But I can see how this is the fundamental crux of it all,
Mm-hmm.
because it connects to truly our spirit in a sense, and then even our physical experience of energy, just feeling fired up or focused, and then maybe I just wonder even about, like, um, vibrancy and frequency, and, like, your impact on the world. Is there a correlation to that too? How well you're connecting with other people, because you're somehow dialed. So maybe map that out just a little bit further, how it all fits together. And this is the root of opportunity for I think maybe part of our society, healing for individuals, healing. This could potentially be the root of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically what I'm hearing is let's unpack the benefits of semen retention and how that can impact your individual life. And then also collectively what that can do for us is kind of what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of sequence here. Before we get to it, now that I think about it, because that's like tactically what there
Mm-hmm.
is to do about it. What kind of counsel do you provide some of your clients? You're helping them, break free of porn, but then uh, they have kids, and they have youngsters or whatever in their realm, and they don't want those youngsters, the next generation, to get duped and caught up and have their life force neglected, wasted.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of practical advice do you have for fathers and parents? Maybe there's some moms listening trying to understand this. We know the world has changed fast from, as you said, Playboy to AI porn right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can think it, it's available. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So how do we shepherd our kids through these times, and what is there to be on the lookout for in your assessment?
Yeah. So the most clear and direct way to protect your own child is to do your own sexual shadow work. And the reason why I say that is because um, I've caught, like adults, men that I look up to. I'm not going to name names because that would be, we're on a podcast here, but seeing them look at inappropriate things impacted me as a little one, as a young one, right? And then in addition to that, we go out in the world, and then I'm watching them objectify women while walking with their wives. And I'm attuning to that. And that's a frequency that I'm picking up, and it's shaping me in the way that I actually uh, ended up, being in the world ultimately. And so the best way to protect your own child is to stop watching pornography yourself and to stop objectifying and to stop leaking your own life force. And when I say life force, I want to be very clear. I don't mean just your seminal fluid and your actual semen, but I also mean your thoughts and your eyes, right? You go out into the world, and if you're sitting there and every single woman that walks by, you lift up your head and you look her up and down, and now you're pulled off of your mark with whatever you're doing, that means that you've given your life force to something, and now you don't have that energy to put into whatever it is that you were doing or that's important to you. And so what I'm calling awareness to is that the first step to protecting your child is to address your own stuff, because every time they walk in the room and you flinch, they are picking up on that frequency that you're doing something that is not okay or inappropriate, and that becomes a frequency. And so I just want to name that, and then also just to unshame it. And the reason, or I would say my number one superpower is that when men come to me and they bare all and they share their darkest secrets with me, it's like, hey, this is a safe place for you to share. I'm going to take this to the grave. You can share whatever you'd like. And they do. And they share things that they've never shared with anybody in their lives in the very first call. And I'm like, wow, thank you for being so vulnerable. And I've heard that before. And they're like, what? Because a lot of men think, oh, I'm a special kind of fucked up. Nobody does this. Nobody's looked at that kind of porn. Nobody. And I'm like, no, they do. They do that. And I've worked with it before. And so I just want to like name that. But the before we go into the actual tactical of protecting your child, what we also have to understand is think back for a moment to when like when you were 12, Dave, like what was actually going on for you. And so what I always kind of say to men is, were you bullied? Were you a pimply, fat, chubby kid that got picked on? Did you not attract a girlfriend, or did she break up with you for the quarterback on the football team? Did your dog die? Did you move towns or schools or homes? Did you have late puberty or early puberty or whatever it might be that was kind of strange or weird? What was your journey? And then all of a sudden, you have all this programming of, men don't cry, or excuse me, boys don't cry, grow up, be a man kind of thing, right? So that, don't be sensitive. And then all of that. And then it's like you find that first masturbation and you're just like, oh, this feels so good. And again, nothing wrong with that, to use your masturbation to feel better. But then we began to use it to escape the reality of life when we were sad or sick or bored or angry or scared or alone or whatever it was. Again, totally survival. But now here we are, we're all grown up. I'm 40, right? I'm a man. I'm taking on 2 boys, stepchildren here soon, right? And if I'm not attuning to that, if I don't attune to my own wounding of what I went through, then I'm almost certainly going to have a blind spot of not attuning to my own sons when they're going through that type of thing. And then they're more likely to carry that on. And so as we turn back to that 12-year-old in us and 13-year-old and 15 and 20-year-old who got broken up with or had a broken heart or whatever and needed the porn to survive, we have to say like, thank you. Like, thank you to that part of us that utilized that to actually survive our lives. And now we're all grown up, and now we need to find a different way to cope and to actually therapeutically heal this and grieve it so that we can break the cycle and move on with our lives. So that's kind of the first step for putting yourself in the right mindset in order to then therefore protect your children.
Totally. And a lot of dudes are caught up in it in various degrees. I can say, yeah, I can say to a degree for myself, I could be more focused for sure. I can see it. Now, I was just thinking, if you're raising a kid who's, I don't know, a youngster up until some sort of formidable years of 12 to 14, they're going to have hardship, and they might also find porn and masturbation in their toolkit of experiences in such a time frame that all of a sudden they kind of like lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
But you would not want to shame them either. Just like you don't want to shame yourself, you're not going to shame your kids. That might be a message,
Yeah.
I would imagine, right? Like, and the conversation you're having with a youngster versus at a certain point, I'm just, what does it sound like to talk to your youngsters? How do you guide them once because they're going to come on, they're going to discover porn. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
just listen, but how are we going to stop porn from being discoverable in this day and age? So admit that that's probably the most likely scenario. What do we do? What kind of conversation do we have about it that
Mm-hmm.
is simplified enough for their
Yeah.
younger brains? And then I want to almost go to like, at a certain point, we also want to have a conversation where we invite them to treat uh, sex as a ritual, but that's beyond the 12-year-old
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So start with me on the young conversation. How do we simplify what's going on and what's at stake so that if we did have to have a sit down with, like, say, an 8 to 14-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah.
being really mindful of where they're at, the environment we're in, and maybe creating some best practices or guidance for them.
Yeah. So when we were young, from the people that I've interviewed, 99% of men today had no elder guidance coming of age, no rite of passage in the area of life as a whole, but also especially in the arena of sexuality. So most of us are uninitiated men who are initiated by porn, and so we have to understand that we didn't actually have dads that had those conversations with us, and so we're having to do that on our own and have these things that didn't happen. So there's a grief in that. And then the birds and the bees is not the approach that I would ever say, right? The conversation of sex begins early and it begins regularly. It's not just one conversation that you have that you explain everything. It's something that is a conversation that is ever evolving. And ultimately, it's a conversation that helps children to understand that there are appropriate and inappropriate things to do. And there are appropriate and inappropriate things to see on the internet, right? So, you know, right now, children are seeing pornography on average at around 8 or 9 years old, according to Exodus Cry, which is a big nonprofit that does this work. And that's terrifying. And ultimately, that's because parents are not putting browser blockers on their children's devices. And that's really important. And so there's one called Bark, BARK .us, bark.us. And that's a good browser blocker. And I think it's important to put it on your children's devices because you can block obviously any website that you want, including any social media website that you want. And when they do search something, it sends you a text message so you can see what they're searching, so that you kind of know developmentally where they're at in their journey, so that you can kind of have a pulse on it.
Mm.
And we have to also understand that we've been tasked with an impossible job. There's no way that your child will never not see pornography. They will see pornography at some date. Our job as fathers and mothers is to elongate the space between their development so that they see it as far off in the future as possible. And so that conversation, what that might look like when they start to like be engaged in the internet is just to say that, to say, hey, there are things on the internet that are for children and there are things on the internet that are for adults. And some of the things on the internet for adults are not good for children. In fact, it can actually hurt your brain. It can cause damage to you. And so I'm just saying that we have to be careful. And so what does that look like? So when we take off all of our clothes, we have a naked body. So if you ever see anything on the internet where there's naked people, or where maybe your friends show you something, or if you ever see something in a video game or on social media or cartoons, you're not going to be in trouble, not at all in any way, shape, or form. But I want you to immediately leave that situation and come to tell an adult and come tell me, and you will never be in trouble for that. We just need to make sure that we keep you safe. Just like when we get to a crosswalk, we look both ways, right? If there's a car, you don't go because you can get hurt and you can get injured. It's the same way the brain can get injured. So you just speak to them like in very kind of simple ways about it. So you don't like take it too extreme. But then you allow them to ask questions if they want to about that. And you just kind of meet them where they're at as they're going through that process.
So
So
your
don't
suggestion,
overshare. Yeah.
in a way, is at a certain point, it's worth having a proactive conversation about there are inappropriate and appropriate things that the world's going to show you.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are designed for adults and adults only, and some things are designed for kiddos.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so that's a proactive conversation, but realistically, some people might be having that in a reactive capacity.
Yeah. So moms contact me all the time. I probably get one once a month. A mother will contact me. Oh my gosh, my young boy, I'm a single mother, or her, I'm in a divorce and my son just came to me and he, was looking at pornography. What do I do?
Mm.
Right? That's a common question.
Mm.
And they're often in a panic. And my whole thing is, again, you did the right thing. Nothing that you did was inappropriate by coming and telling me that was the right thing to do. And so it's important that they do that and that you don't punish them for that, because boys are going to be naturally curious about these things. But there are, when kids get to be that age, there are youth programs, not in all parts of the world, but it is important to get them into youth programs. There are youth men's work, boys programs that I would recommend. And these are rites of passage type organizations that are happening in different pockets of the world that are kind of having these types of conversations. So that's really important. And then I think ultimately it's about helping them to move some of that energy out of their bodies, because it's going to be quite confusing for most. I mean, you probably remember the first time you saw it, your whole body gets flooded with that information. And it's such a impactful experience that it can be a little bit much. So things that you can do is taking your child to water, to a lake, to the river, to an ocean, and kind of just like going and kind of move some of that energy, going underwater and kind of pushing through some of that just to kind of move it out of the body. And then also then, in a perfect world, this is what I envision. We're kind of moving into the next phase, which is like, how do we do this when our boys are getting to that age? Which in my mind, my children 6 and 4 that are boys. But in a perfect world, the men that have done their shadow work are coming together as their boys are coming of age. Like Mark, for example, his boy is the same age as my kids, right? What would that look like to bring a group of men, even if it's a small group, 4 men, 5 men with their boys, into, a forest, a jungle, a desert somewhere for an extended period of time? Maybe it's for a week. And having sort of not necessarily a rite of passage like they have in indigenous cultures where, not everybody makes it out, and where literally some boys die as they're going through their rite of passage, because that's a little extreme. But what would it look like to facilitate some really important conversations and put the boys through some sort of a rigorous experience where they feel like they're coming into manhood, and then they know how to work with their sexual energy. And so what I mean by that is like doing qigong and doing hip circles and having a fire circle and talking about the dangers of pornography and some of the failures and mistakes that we've made as men when we were young boys, and how that impacted our lives and our partners and our friends and our families, and really just opening it up and allowing for these boys to witness men having these conversations. And then in a perfect world, again, ideally, this is what I see. Of course, this is not being done yet, but I wish in reflection that my first experience would have been on a solo. Like I spend the night out in the, in the forest alone, away from the parents, away from mom, away from dad. And in that process, connecting for the first time to my sexuality in nature, where I'm not necessarily thinking my way or scrolling through porn as a way to bring myself to orgasm, but where I'm actually connecting my first orgasmic experiences into the natural world and into, what is quite natural. So that's, to me, like the direction that I see we could go collectively, and where I'm going to be leading my boys and the men that come into the men's groups that I work with for the future. So
no, it seems like a more healthy approach, a more prudent approach, and you can see how it ripples effect the ripples it would have through how we operate, like our collective operating system in a sense. I'm just trying to think about, what are some of the almost like the real vulnerabilities as a society. And you and I have offline shared some of our perspectives here, but it feels like the world, our country, has become softer. It's not vigorous. It's soft. It's apathetic. It's weak versus strong. in physical force. It's in mental conviction and clarity. There seems to be compromises. Is there a correlation by chance of where society is today and how ridiculously prevalent porn is in our
Yeah.
culture? What's your assessment as like a cultural anthropologist? Put your hat on and
Well, what's that quote? Something like easy times create soft men or weak men, something like that. And we are, living in some of the easiest times alive with the amount of wealth and the amount of access to technology and the ease of, uh, effectively having your sexual needs met, even though it's through technology. And what I mean specifically is for thousands of years, if you wanted to have sex, you needed to get married. In order to get married, you needed to be a productive part of society.
mm,
What did that mean? That means that you needed to go off to war. You needed to be, proficient at a skill, a tradesman. You needed to be a steel worker or, be able to cut down trees or whatever it might be. And in that process, you were able to build some structure, which then allowed for you to be able to invite a mate into that structure where then you got married and you were able to have sex. Well, you don't have to do any of that now. You don't have to have legitimately any conversation or put out any effort
yep.
to get your sexual needs met. Now, are they really being met? No, they're hollow, right? Which is why we have aimlessness, uselessness, and purposelessness, because we're having less sex than we've ever had in history because we're having so much sex with technology. But you also have to look at, we're also having a lot of real sex too, because for millions of years, we only had millions of people on the planet, and all of a sudden it's a hockey stick and now we're at 8 billion, right? So obviously pornography and technology and wealth and oil has created an explosion of population too. But how many of those children are wanted, cared for, loved, and where they actually have like a solid foundation? And I would say, less than half probably on planet Earth because of where we're at. I mean, I don't know what the actual number would be. That's just my guess.
No, I get what you're getting at though.
It's just a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're just being so frivolous with our sexuality. So maybe take me on a bit of a philosophical walkabout here. Like how is sexuality has been monetized and co-opted and exploited, but it's not going anywhere. And in fact, it's actually this magical, beautiful thing in a sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's your reframe for the listener when it comes to our sexuality, when it comes to being sexual, meaning being attracted sexually to somebody, and then the act of sex, and how of course, it's also essential for us to perpetuate our existence. But the reframe on it's not that sex is bad, porn is a bad version of it. Sex is potentially good if we hold it in this regard or if we approach it this way.
Mm-hmm.
What's your counsel?
Yeah. Well, there's so much shame woven into sex, and often what we're not aware of is when you look at, and what we have to teach our kids is that you're going to see pornography, and you can teach yourself this too, but can we look at it critically? Because when we look at pornography critically, 90%, 9 out of 10 videos has some form of violence or non-consent or power play or eroticized wounding, or even the genres, they're just warped, right? So how do we, if we've been dabbling in that for decades, and I was addicted for 20 years, how do we go from this when we don't even have a template for what this could be, which is this holy thing, right? This
Mm-hmm.
ritualized type, sexual union. Because if this is all we know, then we don't even know what this is, right? So first off, it takes a little bit of imagination, right? We have to be able to imagine something that is maybe not even in our awareness. And so that's why I like to share a bit about my union with my partner as a way to give people sort of a North Star and teach people how I orient to it, because I came from this toxic gross shit. And now, if pornography is McDonald's drive-through, what does a grass-fed, grass-finished steak, with amazing vegetables and a glass of wine look like? Like, how do we transition from fast food sex into like the holiest of holies, right? Without spiritually bypassing, but like really like having sex that actually transforms you at a spiritual level, and it up levels you in every area of your life. And so what we have to understand is that this is more of a, you said, let's go on a philosophical walkabout. So philosophically speaking, you got to look at Aristotle. So Aristotle says there's three primary relationships or ways to be in relationship. There's transactional, hedonistic, which is just pure pleasure. And then there's virtuous relationships. And ultimately, porn is wiring us and programming us into transactional, hedonistic relational dynamics, which is I'm looking at a person through the lens at which I look through myself. So if I'm masturbating to feel better, then I can't even see that I'm wiring myself to use other people to feel better too, right? And so that ends up being the world we live in, which is people go on dating apps and they swipe and then they end up walking up and hitting on each other and they have sex just to feel better. And it's just a means to an end. Both parties are lonely, both parties, and even marriages happen that way too. Okay. It's like, oh, we're going to level up, but there's not a lot of virtue there. Now, when we look at virtuous relationships, right, the relationship is an end unto itself. It is the incubation of physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, familial development and spiritual development. And ultimately, that is a virtuous relationship where you're not using someone as a means to an end. And I only have virtuous relationships, whether it's this conversation, this is not a means to some end, like this is the end, like we're having this dynamic, this conversation. And that's the way I relate to my partner as well. I'm not using her as a means to feel better when it comes to sex, right? So when we move out of sex as a thing that you do to feel better, we move into sex as a place that you go to connect, to actually meet yourself and to meet your partner. And in those spaces, man, to name the unnameable, right? To describe the ineffable is really what I'm calling awareness to. Because, beyond porn addiction, I also teach men to last as long as they want in the bedroom, right? To become multi-orgasmic, to separate ejaculation from orgasm so that they can have these deeply connecting experiences and keep their seed and to make love. And so like when my partner and I come together for days on end and I'm moving through that, or we are moving through that process, and I choose to release at the very end of that, well, we have just taken what usually most men, they usually ejaculate in the first 10 minutes, if they're lucky, 20 minutes, and then they need refractory period. They need a day to, kind of rebuild or whatever. But if you can actually make love for multiple days on end and have prayerful intention and connection and energetic exchange, well, sex becomes a portal. It becomes a portal to the divine. It becomes a portal to God. It becomes a portal to other flow states where there's richness, selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, whereby which you actually end up healing one another and growing a family in a way that is completely different than what we traditionally know. So that's a lot, but I just thought I'd go there and just like share how amazing it is.
Rip.
It's fucking
That's what
great.
I meant by the philosophical walkabout there,
Yeah.
No, I think transactional, I wonder how much, yeah, this is almost a quick self-assessment for anybody listening. You're like, how do I view sex?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's my attitude towards it? And then based on maybe recently how you're actually having sex, if you're having sex, or even if you're not having sex, is it transactional? What was the middle one? Because then you got to hedonistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
I'll
virtuous.
say
Although
this.
yeah.
What was that?
I was just going to acknowledge that was a level of relationship according to Aristotle, I believe you
Yeah.
said. But I just translate that into, yeah, transactional sex, hedonistic sex, or virtuous sex as a way to give yourself just a place to start a quick assessment and say, well, what is my relationship with sex? Have I
Mm-hmm.
ever really treated it as a portal to the divine?
Yeah.
I bet, I mean, I appreciate that notion, and
Mm-hmm.
yet not a lot of people think of it in that way. it's almost intimidating to think of it, or a little out there to think of it that way. Yet it could be thought of
Yeah.
that way. And
Mhm.
there's that's the agency. It comes back to agency for me. It's like, if you really wanted to hold sex in high regard and honor it, here's what it can look like. Now, not
Mhm.
everyone needs to be there, but this is a spectrum, right? In a sense,
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
porn, there's a bunch of space in between and spots in between, and then there's a virtuous
Yeah.
sexual exchange or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it can it be seen as church, or can it be seen as a, ayahuasca ceremony, or can it be seen as something that is related to as reverence, that can you see the infinite number of women inside of this one woman's eyes, or do you need to go look and find more and more and more? Like, in other words, instead of going wide, right, being poly and having all of these relational dynamics, what would it look like to go deep with one human being, to go all in? And you got to be aware of who you're going all in with. I mean, it's the most important decision you make in your whole life, ultimately, who you choose to go all in with. But I think if you find the right person who um, is ready to go, then, I think it can be just an epic adventure. And I'll also say one thing back to sort of the transactional piece. There's a quote that comes to mind, which is sort of like this idea that men give love to get sex and women give sex to get love. It's like it's an idea. It's not necessarily true, but I think on the masculine form, whoever's wearing the more masculine form, that's usually the dynamic there. And then also, there's a quote by Oliver Wilde, I think. Is that who it is? Anyways, the idea is everything is about sex except for sex. Sex is about power, right? So it's like sort of this idea that, yeah, when you look at it from the shadow side, sex is about power, for sure, power over or under. But in a virtuous relationship, there's not power over or under dynamics. It's power within. And that as you come alive in your own orgasmic expression, so does your partner. And, there's a guy, this is another philosophical conversation, but there's a guy who I follow who's amazing. And his name's, I have his book right here. It'll come to me in a second. Wilhelm Reich. And basically his idea, he was a German philosopher at the same time as Freud and Jung and that sort of thing. But his idea is that the general fear of life, like if we're really afraid of life, we're also we have a genuine fear of orgasm. And so that as we become more orgasmic and more expressive with our orgasmic energy, we also have less life fear as well. So you think about like a man just sitting here in secrecy, silence, and shame, just like masturbating to porn and is like under the covers, versus a man outside of the top of the mountain having his orgasmic experience, right? And the difference between the nervous system and the way that one expresses oneself in fear versus when one has access to his full orgasmic potency and potential is a very different man. Do you see what I mean?
Yes. I'm just picturing, middle of nowhere, wolves howling, stars bright. You're just like treating it like primal, some primal ritual, which I'm sure that's one of, that's available for some of your workshops. I guess you're guiding people to think about how to go be intentional with something that it's somehow I'm almost giggling like I'm like I can in eighth grade with you and we're saying the word penis or something. It's like
I know,
it's like
right?
something about masturbation and sex and all this that's faux pas, yet it's so human, and it's almost that tension that not talking about it then opens it up for being taken advantage of. So let's just be a little bit more realistic about it, and hopefully some of this conversation gives people some language they can use for their kiddos as they're guiding them through the coming of age.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm wondering, this is off the cuff, so bear with me here, but if a man hears what you're saying
Mm-hmm.
trying to, and maybe they've wrangled porn a little bit. That's not an issue any longer. Although if anyone's faced with that, obviously that's like, you got to call Tyson and just figure out what there is to do, because you're
Yeah.
getting duped. You're getting duped. But if maybe you've got a handle on that, but you do want to elevate your relationship, this is back to the virtuous side of, and what might it sound to, so you're not freaking your wife out, you're not confusing her too much, you're not necessarily, I mean, you might want to gently open the door and let her walk through it and tell her the whole thing. But how do you broach the subject of, I want to have like virtuous cosmic sexual experience with you, and we almost need to co-captain this journey together, because I
Mm-hmm.
assume it takes two to tango in this case, right? What's it sound like to start that conversation
Mm-hmm.
for a man or a woman listening and wants to have that with their partner?
Yeah. So before you could have cosmic, blow your brains out kind of soul opening sexual experiences, I call them godgasms.
Mhm.
Um, you got to slow the hell down, right? I call it sloth sex. So the first step isn't actually saying, hey, I want to go there. The first step is saying, hey, I want to become more present and more steady and more slow with it. And so the conversation might go like, hey, I'm noticing that when we are connecting sexually, that we kind of get in a rut and we just kind of go through the motions like we have been. And do you remember back when we, were young and, remember that cabin we were at and we were on that bearskin rug, and remember that like anniversary? And do you remember that? And we had that glass of, yeah. Do you remember, like, I want to get back to that. Do you remember that? Yeah, I remember that. Okay, let's start there, right? So if you can help your partner anchor to something in the past that was awesome, that's a good place to start, because often if you come with something, you're like, hey, I want to do this, sometimes it can create defensiveness in the person, right? So it's like, and then from there, it's like, okay, and now I also want to slow it way down. Like, do you know what the word, or do you know what semen retention is? And that you'd say that to your woman, right? And some women do and some women don't. And if they say no, then say, okay, this is what it is. But if they say yes, be like, okay, well, what do you think it is? And most women might say, oh, it means like, you're not gonna ejaculate. And a lot of women really like it. They like really want their man to ejaculate. And so like they end up really, because it's life force, right? Whether however they're ingesting it or however they are taking it in. And so part of the journey is saying, hey, I would like to slow it down, and I would like to make love and do semen retention, which is to say that every time that we make love, maybe I don't ejaculate or I don't want to ejaculate. And then when we do choose to, we do it with intention, where we're both choosing to do that at that moment. So that's the first step, just kind of moving into a little bit more intention and slowing it down. And when you slow it down, the presence, the eye contact, the body, the nervous system, it just relaxes and you start to make love from parasympathetic. And when you remove orgasm off the table, then you go in the direction of opening up these experiences, which then become a doorway and a gateway to those other big experiences that I shared. So it's like, first we go back before we go forward.
And yeah, this idea of slowing it down, literally, like slow your hips down, slow everything down, man. Your
Yeah.
breath, you know, whatever position you're in, you're truly pacing yourself. That makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just thinking about how much courage it takes, though, to get to a spot where you're witnessing your partner deeply, getting it back into eye contact and, full acceptance of one another, full embrace. Like, if you haven't been there for a while
Mm-hmm.
and you want to reconnect to that, it is a bit of it's a vulnerable spot to be. I'm just trying to put myself in that situation. I'm newly married and all is well, but it's like, it feels like there's people who might be in that rut.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
part of the conversation acknowledging, hey, this is potentially a new rhythm. It's going to feel different, and it's going to take both of us being vulnerable. I mean, do you have that? How does that sound? I'm just trying to think about
Yeah.
how to overcome some of the realities of life.
I mean, I work as a couples therapist, and so a lot of couples come to me and they haven't been having a lot of sex and they want to be having sex. And so sometimes there's a few conversations and things that need to be cleared first before the sexual experience begins. But I think you don't necessarily need to move into penetrative experiences. If you're going to slow things down, hey, I'd like to give you a massage tonight, and it's not a means to some end. Like at the end of the massage will be over, and like I don't want to take it further. Just want to like get good at giving for the sake of giving, just so that you can experience that. And one of the things that's really important to attune to when you're in a lovemaking experience or even in a giving experience is not trying to get her to have an experience, not trying to get her to orgasm or to get her to have pleasure. Ideally, you're inside of your own body and inside of your own fingers or or inside your own penis, and you're actually tracking what is pleasurable for you. And as you're attuning to your own pleasure, that creates more pleasure for your experience, and then that'll create more pleasure in your partner. And so both partners, as they reattune to themselves while in connection, that's actually a more direct path to having these more sacred sexual experiences. So, yeah.
Well, obviously, if people feel like they're like, oh my God, I've been thinking about this. This is crazy. This topic is, it's right where we're where we're at in our relationship. We'll make sure we can track down Tyson Adams because you're doing some important stuff. So I have a final question to wrap us up, but before we get to that, I'm just thinking, what's the closing thought about this space when it comes to fatherhood and parenting, and what there is to do over the next 20 years, what there is to be on the lookout for, and what there is to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Just any closing thoughts to tie it all together?
I kind of have this way of looking at parenting. Pick your child up and you fuck them up, leave them there and you fuck them up. But simultaneously pick them up and you love them, leave them there, you love them. So what I mean by that is that we are going to mess it up, and we're especially going to mess it up as it relates to the nature of the intersection between technology and sexuality, because we didn't have elder guidance. And so what I would say is do your best to talk to other men and other fathers about it. Bring it up in your men's group, form a men's group, build a men's group, join a men's group, be in a space that you can bounce ideas off of other people so that you do the least amount of harm possible, and that your own blind spots don't end up creating a lineage burden that you end up forcing your own child to bear and to walk that road because you didn't clean up your own mess. Right. So if you're out there and you're listening, I would say, please, please, please do your work, not only for yourself, but for the next 7 generations, because it's not just your son or daughter. It's also for the kids that are coming well after. And so this is the moment to step up. And so please do. And if you need help and support, reach out to either of us or any men, and you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, indeed. Well said.
Yeah.
All right. So Tyson, we didn't set this context early on, but you implied it throughout it. You have a wonderful partner, and she has 2 youngsters already. So you're stepping into a father role, and have been in, frankly, as you're probably building rapport with her, you're building rapport with them. And then there's who knows what the future holds for Tyson as a father, as a partner to Minta. So I'm just thinking, if you can bear with me on a little visualization where who knows exactly what your fatherhood capacity turns out to be, but it's 30, 40 years from now. And those who you've had the good fortune of fathering are sitting around a campfire and they're reminiscing about the father figure, or the father that is Tyson Adams. As you're stepping into this new role too, I wonder how you're thinking about this. What are the 3 things you hope you're known for? You can be known for a lot of things, but what are the 3 things you hope you're known for as a father, and how do they sound when they're telling stories about you around this campfire?
I think number one would be I could bring anything that I was going through to my father and be in a safe place without judgment, and a place where he would help reflect back to me uh, what I was doing, and to help me to figure out my own path without telling me what to do.
Wow.
So that's the first thing that jumps out at me. The ability to be a safe place for my children is a huge one. It's a big one for me. I think the second one would be that I would be in a place of being a true elder, having earned the right to be a true elder, meaning that I took what I love to do, what I'm good at, and my own core wound, right, of early porn exposure and being a part of a family with a lot of sexual trauma. And I found a way to alchemize that into purpose in a way that actually made the world a better place. And so my children and grandchildren would be able to sit there and to look and to have a frequency, not necessarily words, but a frequency of knowing that it is possible to take our darkest shit and be able to make the world just a little bit brighter. And so that there would be a degree of just being proud, not necessarily of me, but proud of themselves and proud of their own children in a way that was earned because they were able to model that frequency for their own lives. And then I would say at 80, lastly, to be able to sit there with Minta and be in really damn good shape, emotionally, physically, spiritually, where like there's actual virtuous love pouring out of us, where there are men and women and men and women's groups flying in to wherever our land will be with that big, huge, amazing yurt with those amazing little homes, like little yurts around the property to come in and to do this work, and where we could actually be looked up to and also be real and human, not some culty cult kind of weird thing where we were not reachable, but like where we were actually a couple that people looked up to, where it was actually healthy and not just this thing that people make it out to be, this, healthy relationship that's really not healthy, and where our vibrancy and our sex life and our purpose is like shining brightly, and the world can actually see that. And it's a beacon, it's a model, it's a frequency, a book, it's a community of people, right? So that to me would be what I would want my children to be able to reflect upon and be like, wow, our parents and grandparents are amazing human beings.
Well admired human beings.
Exactly.
Well, you are one of the most intentional men I know, and the work you're doing is, it's truly, it's like the direct way to level up our contribution as fathers. And I feel like the part of the ethos, the philosophy of this podcast is, unraveling or revealing itself to me as how critical the father figure is, and how if every father just steps up and takes full agency over the duty and the honor of the role, there's a lot of value add in the world. It makes us stronger as a society, makes us have more clarity and robustness, more abundance, more play, more, everything improves if the father role is elevated. And your work is obviously critical for that. So Tyson Adams, thank you, my man. This is a very serious topic. I'm glad we were giggling at certain points about everything we're talking about, and trying to, and just great to see you smiling and looking lean and mean with that fresh cut.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna make sure everyone knows how to track you down and get in touch, because this hopefully is just the spark to a bigger conversation for many men. So Tyson, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Dave.
Cheers. There you have it. You know, I believe the world is calling on us as fathers to step up and be stewards and shepherds of those around us. The times are interesting, and they are demanding more out of us than perhaps we once realized. It's because of that that I want to celebrate and honor the ultimate role of fatherhood and set up dads for maximum impact. So thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch the coming episodes. And above all, share this episode with a father you admire. See you on the next one.
Go dad, here we go now. Oh yeah, the ultimate roll now. Oh yeah.